Good morning and welcome back to the Sage Sorority. I'm your host, Shantel. How are we all doing, guys? Happy Thursday. I'm officially back at my desk. It is a weird kind of weather where it's very cloudy, but the sun is like desperately trying to peek through. So it's giving me a little bit of energy and a jolt to my system. For those of you that follow along on Instagram, you can find me at Shantel Russo and also at the Sage Sorority. I have been on holiday and I mentioned it last week, obviously. I spent a few days in Bodrum in Turkey and then I spent a few days in Kos in Greece. And the reason why I went to Kos was I wanted to go somewhere that was really easy to get to from Bodrum, and it's just like a half-hour ferry, which is great. And I had a great time. The weather was beautiful. Kos was a little bit more windy and slightly cooler, and mosquitoes, which I absolutely hate, but that's neither here nor there. Food was good. Service was good. It was nice to get away, but I'm so happy to be back. I was really itching for my bed and my space after a while, which is kind of how I feel if I've been away for a while. But, it's always the same, right? Sad to leave, but happy to go back to your regular life. So it's me at my desk, copious amounts of laundry, and I'm a very slow unpacker. I know that's like a faux pas. Everyone's like, no, you got to get it done same night within 24 hours. And I'm just so not like that. I'm an overpacker. It takes me long to pack. It takes me even longer to unpack. So that is what I'll be doing for the next 4 to 5 business days. But that is not what this episode's about. Today is a relatively quickie one. It's 5 really solid, self-worth lessons, tip, tricks, advice, whatever you want to call it, that I wish I knew sooner and that I think is super relevant and helpful no matter where you are at in life. They're quick truths that have really made a big difference in my relationships, my friendships, and just the way I kind of move throughout the world. I've got a book recommendation for you as well, just in case you are enjoying this specific content and want to dive a little bit more deeper into it. And a couple of statistics to just kind of help ground what I'm saying, because we love receipts over here. So let's get into it. Lesson number 1, boundaries do not need an essay. So one of the biggest things I've learned is that boundaries are about maintenance, not explanation. If you're over-explaining, you're not holding a boundary. You're essentially just trying to convince someone else to accept it. And that's why real boundaries are quiet and they're action-based. This is what I will allow, and this is what will happen if that boundary is crossed or violated or whatever, end of. And if that feels really harsh, you're obviously not alone. There's lots of surveys, one from Ascension Counseling that basically says more than half adults, so around 60%, say that they struggle to set and maintain personal boundaries in relationships. That's a really high amount of adults. So you have to think 60% of the population, man and woman, have a hard time setting and maintaining, which means keeping up with their own personal boundaries in relationships. That's tough. The point of boundaries is you are your own goalkeeper, right? It's your job to set your own boundaries and then you have to maintain them. The hard work is in maintaining it. I think for most women, and what I used to say a lot when I was dating quite a bit, was that it's not about meeting the right person necessarily, like it is, but I think success in dating is being able to say no to things that are not for you, what you don't want. I feel like that's the goopy trap that a lot of women and maybe men, I don't know, find themselves in, is that it's less about letting in what you do want and way more about buffing what you don't want. I feel like that is a really hard thing for a lot of women to maintain, and that is essentially a type of boundary, right? And you might be thinking but Shantel, they won't understand. It sounds really harsh. It's really mean. And I would say respectfully, you're missing the point. People who respect you, don't need a PowerPoint presentation to honor your limits. And people who don't respect you, no amount of explaining or justification is going to change that. I am very big on not over-explaining myself, because you can call it smug, you can call it bougie, whatever you want. I just think when someone really cares about you, there's certain things that you just don't have to over-explain. They're either gonna get it or they're choosing not to. And that directly aligns with respect. Referencing the stats again, the over 60%, that means that most of us are walking around with invisible yeses. And then people wonder why you're burnt out, you're exhausted, you feel like your relationship is not enhancing your life in the way that you saw fit, et cetera, et cetera. So the next time you feel like you have to over-explain yourself when it comes to a boundary, I would say pause. Again, when I worked in sales and you present someone with like the figures or whatever, you just stay silent. Like pause, let that person fill the gap. Feeling the urge to justify and rising up, just let it pass. Let the silence do the heavy lifting, and you're going to watch and learn. I know that maintaining boundaries in a relationship can be tough because you don't want someone to take offense or be hurt by what you're trying to say and do. But it has to be two happy people and whole people coming together, right? It can't just be I'm acquiescing and they're not. Relationships involve a steady game of compromise, but you have to know what is a firm boundary and what is something that you're willing to bend on. A firm boundary can be discussed and explained in a healthy, I want to understand you better type of way, but not in a justifying way. I hope that makes sense. I will say that if you are struggling with boundaries in any aspect of your life, you should definitely get the book Set Boundaries, Find Peace by Nedra Glover Tawwab. She is a very famous Black psychologist. Her book is on boundaries. I don't have it, but it comes highly recommended. I've seen such positive feedback and recommendations on it for a few years because it's been out for a few years. And I think in the book, she actually gives you scripts. So highly recommend. Lesson number 2, it's safety above everything else. So everything good, juicy, fun, brilliant, sexy, amazing about a relationship and in a relationship, talking joy, intimacy, depth, all of that comes from safety. Not vibes, not chemistry, not we like the same foods, not our sun signs match up, not we like the same music, safety. And this is something I just know in my gut, but of course I had to find a statistic that backed up my claim. And the Gottman Institute, which you guys know, we love the Gottman Institute over here. They are the crown jewel of relationship data. They call emotional safety the foundation of lasting connection, and it starts very young. So in one survey, only about 1 in 5 teens said they felt confident speaking up when they were in an uncomfortable relationship. When I was a teenager, I was mouthy then, but I think of my boundaries now and what I'm willing to deal with and what I'm not willing to deal with. And for sure, there's a massive growth, right? And I would hope that for everyone. But I also think about how vulnerable you are as a teenager being in a relationship. And that makes me ache a little that only 1 in 5 feel confident speaking up, because I can only speak for women and girls. Like, you are so vulnerable in relationships, especially as a teenager, especially if your partner is more experienced than you, or peer pressure is very high, especially when you're at a young age, or if you're dating someone who's has a bit of an age gap, which is very common. That makes my heart ache a little. So all the parents out there, I hope you're listening, and I hope you are empowering your teenagers and children to speak up. If young people are already struggling to speak up, imagine how many adults are confusing things like adrenaline and butterflies and vibes and chemistry for safety, right? And you can think that some of that will age out and you will grow up. But if you don't really have the fundamentals, and then you're not looking within, like I always say, to figure it out, it's really easy to just do what you've always done. So I challenge you to ask yourself, whether you are married or dating or you just had a first date with someone, whatever it is, ask yourself, do you feel safe to be honest with this person? Now, delivery and tact and cadence and all those things matter, but do you feel safe and comfortable to be honest with this person? And I think sometimes when people hear safety, they just automatically assume physical safety, and that's only one part of it. There's also emotional safety. There's psychological safety. Those things really matter. Financial safety, like this is what I'm talking about. We have to expand our minds and our perspectives on what safety in a relationship means, because there's all aspects of it. Do you feel safe to be messy with this person, to be incorrect? If the answer is no, your chemistry is irrelevant, frankly speaking. So it's time to recalibrate that compass. The person that makes you feel like you can breathe fully, you can take a deep breath. When people say, oh, I knew he or she was the one because they felt like home, I think that that's a really good place to start and tap into your own safety. And if you don't have that, or you don't feel like you're going in that direction, it's something to evaluate. Lesson number 3, you gotta level up the rooms and the resume. So we talk a lot about self-improvement. As a society, as a culture on this podcast, I'm always encouraging everyone online or offline to read the book, take the class, build the skill, do the hobby, all the things, right? And I stand by that 1010%. But here's the rub. If you are committed to leveling yourself up, that also includes the rooms you're in, the conversations you're having, and the content that you are absorbing. Sociologist Nicholas Christakis found that our behavior, moods, and even our health outcomes are heavily influenced by the people around us. We know this, right? You are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, or 6 people, or whatever it's called. Birds of a feather flock together, all of that stuff. We instinctively know this, but I do think that it's like we know we should eat more vegetables and we don't. So I think that sometimes that gets lost in the fray. I would also say I think people are doing the things IRL, but online they're not. Years ago, this is like a personal point of view. Years ago, and I mean years ago, I'm pretty sure I still lived in Toronto, I unfollowed the Shade Room. I didn't really follow a lot of like gossipy celebrity stuff to begin with because it's just really not my thing, I'll be honest, and it never has been. But I was like, I don't want to see this anymore. I don't care about this kind of content. I also don't think that this content is super helpful. Now, I'm not like on some righteous hill. Every now and again, I will go on there and I will scroll. And then I'll get off of it. And when I say every now and then, I mean like maybe twice a year. Like I just don't want to be up to date with that kind of news, so to speak. And I do think that when I think of my friends that are maybe like losing weight or trying to build their businesses or get better jobs or date better or whatever, I don't bring it up, but I do think like, okay, well, what's your Instagram following like? What's your TikTok For You page like? What's on your YouTube homepage? These things really matter, and I don't think people put enough emphasis on it. I had a friend say to me the other day, like, oh, I got some weird video on TikTok, and I was like so annoyed by it. And I was like, well, did you say that you're not interested? And it's like, they didn't even know how to do that. So FYI, if you are on TikTok and you ever get fed things that you don't like, whether it's the content itself or the creator, whatever it is, you take your finger, put it down, you hold down the screen in the middle of the video and you'll get like a pop-up and just click not interested. And I do that all the time. Every once in a while, TikTok wants to force down my throat like football things, like soccer things. And I think it's just because like I'm in the UK. So that's what a lot of people watch on TikTok in the UK. But I'm always like not interested. Not interested. I don't want anything like this. I don't like anything weird, anything gory, anything too like really, really sad. Whatever it is, that's just not what I want to put in my mind. You can never unsee something. So I think that curating your life does not necessarily mean boxing it in, but it does mean being hyper aware of what you're seeing, what you're reading, what you're eating. It all matters. It's all in tandem, right? Just like how you would be hyper conscious if it was your kid, you have to be hyper conscious for yourself. Your self-worth is shaped by your environment just as much as your inner work. So if you're always in conversations that drain you or things in your head that make you spiral or thoughts that don't really put you in the greatest of place, and that doesn't mean they have to be always happy, but they don't put you in necessarily a critical or knowledge-based perspective either, it keeps you small and that stalls your growth. So yes, upgrade yourself, do all the things, but just know that it is a 360 holistic approach. Lesson number 4, I hereby give you permission to leave before the drama. So I think that this may be more of a woman thing than it is a man thing, but I'll use relationships because I think that's the easiest thing. I think that a lot of women are like, well, there's nothing really wrong. He's not cheating on me and he's not beating me. So why would I leave? And it's like, things don't have to be so insanely chaotic for you to be like, this isn't for me. And there's lots of reasons as to why people think like that, but I do think that that ties into your self-worth. We're conditioned to wait for something big and dramatic before we exit. Betrayals, blow-ups, arguments, like fights, whatever, something like radically undeniable. But some of the wisest, most peaceful exits truly do happen in silence when things are calm. Research shows that the median time it takes for a romantic relationship to end is about 18 months. So that tells me a lot of people stay months or even years longer than they need to. And when I hear this, I'm surprised, but then I'm also like, no, it can't be that surprising because most women I know that have ended a relationship have checked out of that relationship far before they actually pulled the plug. So I guess it's not that surprising. But what I do want to emphasize is that whenever you decide to leave, you don't need theatrics to, one, make that final push and also to justify your decision. And this can also be with work. This can also be with friendships. Sometimes the best exit is a peaceful one. No scandal, no chaos, just you knowing in your bones that this is where it ends and, we have fulfilled what we needed to fulfill. Sometimes this just doesn't feel right anymore, and that is reason enough. Trust your instincts, trust your gut before you feel the need to explain them to others. Once you're locked inward, like I always say, then you will have a much better path and a much smoother conversation when you inevitably get to that point that you have to share it with others. Always tend to your house first. And finally, lesson number 5, judge people by repair, not perfection. So here's the last one. People are going to mess up. They're going to fuck up. They're going to disappoint you. They're going to do really dumb, stupid shit. They're going to say the wrong thing. They're going to make you feel cringe. They're going to well, no, they shouldn't embarrass you, but you know what I mean. Forget the important date, hurt your feelings without meaning to, even though that wasn't their intention, blah, blah, blah. They're human. And everyone is going to do this in some way, shape, or form. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news. You're also going to do it. Your kids are going to do it. All that truly matters is what they do afterwards. The repair, the remorse. Couples therapists will also say this is a huge one when it comes to infidelity, that all that matters is, well, one, you have to be willing to work on it together. Obviously, if you're the person being cheated on, you have to be okay, I am willing to kind of stick around and see if we can get past this. Okay, cool. But after that, it's all about the person who committed the act. Do they feel remorseful? And does that remorse turn into actual actionable repair? Everything is fluff, daisies, and roses without that. And this is a true marker of relationship success. Gottman, so you know it's real. Research shows that in successful marriages, partners turn toward each other for bids for repair 86% of the time. In marriages that eventually fail, that number is 33%. That's a huge gap. And I think the Gottmans say that they can evaluate a couple for 15 minutes and determine if they're going to be together for a long time. I think in general, or they have to be in an argument, something like that. I mean, I wouldn't doubt them because they are the OGs and they're so smart. But yeah, that's the difference. It's not about avoiding mistakes. Yes, you should get better. You can get better and you should get better at avoiding mistakes with your partner because you know them, you know the deal, you know the patterns, you know the routines, you know the triggers. Yes, you should get better at that. But, you're not going to have 100% success rate. You're just not because you're still human. You're still doing your own thing. You're in your own head. You've got your own life. But how are you handling it? How are you handling, if you literally think of it physical, how are you handling this person that you say you care about, that you say you love, that you say you want to be with, that you say you want to sleep with? How are you handling them? And it truly goes both ways because you're not perfect either. So what's your repair rate? When you are messing up, how do you want to be handled? How do you want to be cared for? The takeaway is you're going to judge people, but you're also going to judge yourself by the willingness to repair, not the illusion of perfection. And there's nuance and context to everything, but I do think that that is very important, hyper important for long-term serious relationship. You guys are going to mess up. That's a baseline. But can you come back to each other over and over and over again after that happens? So those are my 5. TLDR, boundaries don't need an essay. Safety beats chemistry every day of the week, every time. Upgrade your rooms, not just yourself. You can leave before the drama. You don't need to wait around for it to justify your exit. And judge people by repair and remorse, not perfection. If any of these hit home today, I want you to sit with it, think about it, maybe talk to your partner about it. I think that could be really helpful. Of course, you're going to share this episode with a friend who you think needs to hear it. Remember, you can also dive a bit deeper into boundaries. The book is Set Boundaries, Find Peace by Nedra Glover Tawwab. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Sage Sorority. New episodes drop every Thursday, as you know, on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Please share, subscribe, and if you loved it, please rate the pod on Spotify, Apple, and like this video on YouTube. This is how we grow the show. I have a lot of big dreams for the show, and it can only work if the show grows. So please share it and spread it with love. I love you guys so much. Have a beautiful week. Have a beautiful weekend. And I will talk to you next week. Bye.